question needs to be engaged. Why would a population of the United States throw itself into the hands of a reality show host? Right. I mean, that is the operative question. It is easy to voter shame, and there are elements of the comfortable left who sit back smugly looking at those people, calling them sexist and racist and homophobic, or calling people who are dissidents and who refuse to just go in line with this typical status quo voting that's got us to the point where we are today, where jobs are being shipped overseas, where the average wage is like $30,000 a year, which is essentially a poverty wage, or people don't have $400 in a bank. The fact of the matter is, there is stress on the population. What that population realizes is that the political class has let them down. The Republican Party has been in the hands of the rich. Fair enough. The top 1% need somebody to represent their interests, and they have the Republican Party sucking at their tit relentlessly. But the party that was supposed to represent workers and the poor and the 99%, and that speaks in that language of FDR, has been utterly discredited. The guy who screamed hope and change in every mic gives 95% of the wealth to the top 1%. And in order to repeat the process, in order to keep that process going, the next status quo candidate who is just going to keep it as is for all intents and purposes lost. The anger and rage and resentment, whatever you want to think about it, however smug you want to be, you got to engage that. Because if you don't engage that, you're bound to repeat this process. Whatever we've done up to this point, from the standpoint of the Democratic Party, has led us to this reality. And smugly sitting back, looking at this, judging, as opposed to honestly engaging, doesn't get you anywhere. This show has taken the perspective that you vote for the person who fully and honestly represents your interests. And earnestness gets you a long way. I've met people who would never vote for a Democrat again because they don't necessarily believe that the party represents their interests. And the reality of is the party or the person that gets 90% of the time, the side that gets the most money, wins. It is a difficult argument to make that this is to some degree democracy when a corporate class is for all intents and purposes funding the political process. Yes, the Republican Party is captured by cash, but yes, the Democratic Party also does not want to challenge the people who fund the Democratic Party. But that's not an absolute. There are some. The reason why I use this case of represent your interests is because there are some Democrats. Ojeda is one of them, and one other one is Jess King. Now, Jess King is running in Pennsylvania in the 11th district against Lloyd Smucker. You can think of him as Lord Smuck if you want. He's a Republican. 47% in that district is below the poverty line. These people, like West Virginia, threw themselves in the hands of Trump. Jess King is running as a flaming lefty and possibly is within spitting distance and could potentially flip that district. The catch of the matter is, no, an invertebrate Democrat can't necessarily get those people because they're not trusted. The system, the morass that we have right now in this country, the difficulty, the pain, the anguish, the resentment at the establishment and that way that we've operated, to some degree has gotten there because of a Democratic Party that spoke in the language of FDR but acted like Ronald Reagan. Earnestness gets you a long way, even in Trump territory. And she's running this way in Trump territory. Just like Ojeda, he's running in Trump territory. And he also may flip that district, calling himself a labor Democrat. The fact of the matter is the populace has been alienated from the political edifice that is supposed to be in the hands of that same population and let down by that political class. They're using Trump as almost a weapon. You can call him whatever names you want. You can use whatever pejorative you want. But fact of the matter is, the Democratic Party has not given an overarching economic message that deals with those people because it would adversely affect the people who are stuffing money in their G-string. Missing the point that the Democratic Party is not supposed to be the party of the rich. We already have a party of the rich. Jess King is making this point just by running and just by doing this well, that Trump voters are not ungettable. Let me introduce you to her. Let me bloviating. This is Jess King. Real News did an awesome spreads on her, and I want to
left to right.
You know, and I think what we see is that voters aren't necessarily on a left to right spectrum as much as they are on a bottom to top spectrum, and that we need to talk more about two political parties that have sold out to special interests, have sold out to a corporate establishment and a political establishment that isn't working for people. And so rather than a left to right, we see a bottom to top. And so you have a huge opportunity to talk to folks across, you know, what we think of a traditional spectrum, to win them over on ideas that really are common sense at the end of the day.
A way of campaigning for issues that affect and appeal to people. It was a theme that resonated throughout a town hall in a small library outside of Lancaster, where King talked about why she was not only shunning big money from Washington PACs, but had concerns about the Democratic Party and its reliance on corporate money.
That politics as usual is this, you know, us and them, you know, they're bad, we're good. It's not that way. I think both parties have failed us in many ways at the national level and sold out to special interests. Both parties are doing this. We know that the DNC, I'm running as a Democrat, in a two-party system you have to do that, but trying to show up more like an independent. We know that the DNC is taking fossil fuel money. You know, so how? We know that Democrats have sold out and deregulating Wall Street and don't reflect the values of working families as much as they need to at the national level. I have disagreements with the party, right, that I'm running under. I think that our elected officials today need to be ready to stand up to leaders in both parties to say, we need to have new leadership and new resolve to reflect the interests of the American people across party lines.
Well, what we're finding is...
Yes. The issue is class. You have a corporate class that essentially bought the political process on both sides of the spectrum. When Klobuchar comes out, or Klubeck, whatever his name is, comes out and says, I'm going to shut my purse strings if these people talk about class, that's an amazing thing. You have income inequality that is at record levels. Class is the thing that you actually need to be talking about. And this guy, who's a Democratic donor, is essentially telling Democrats, shut up about the issue that you actually need to talk about, that's actually creating this anger and chaos that's in the society itself. Shut up. By the same token, the Republican Party, you have one of the Republicans come out and say, well, with this tax cuts, is going to give all this money, like put $1.5 trillion on the back of the American population, after the Republican Party has screamed that they'll die on the flag before putting 1 red cent on the national debt under Obama. Just rampant hypocrisy. Comes out saying, my donors have told me that if I don't pass this tax cut, lose my number. Both is the problem, not one or the other. The problem is both. This goes into my reasoning of being against this lesser evil voting. Earnestness gets you a long way. I've met people who are Trump supporters. I've had arguments with people who are Trump supporters. And at the end of those arguments, they said, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe my issue here is anger because there's nobody out there who's looking out for me. Let's call the guy Bob. There's nobody up there that's looking out for Bob, so I would rather not deal with any of them. Now, many other people are voting for people who don't represent their interests. They threw their lives into the hands of a blue-collar billionaire because he was the person who was talking about a change candidate. You can't blame him. You can't blame them. You have to engage and figure out why. And fact of the matter is, Ojeda, are proving that you can run in these districts as a flaming lefty, especially if the people in those districts believe you're real and believe you will represent them. Something they don't believe that the Democratic Party as a national party does. Let's take one more look at her in another part, because I like her. This is her in a debate with Smucker. She's hitting him on Medicare. Oh, I love it. I love it. Medicare is fantastically popular. So any notion of cutting Medicare is a fail. And the thing is, Republicans have come up with this bullshit excuse saying, oh, we're trying to save Medicare. Nonsense! You're not saving Medicare by cutting Medicare. In fact, Medicare should be expanded, and it should be expanded to everyone. And that should be the tip of the spear. And it should be, look, I am in this camp that if the Democrat, whoever it is not on board for Medicare for all, you should not vote for that Democrat. I don't give a shit if Satan himself is on the other side of the political parties. It should be a red line. It should be a tip of the spear. That's my perspective of things. Let's keep going.
He voted to cut $500 billion from Medicare and Social Security. $500 billion. And so to talk about protecting Social Security and Medicare, when this is something that our seniors are depending on, and yet making a vote to cut that much money from programs does not mean protecting and keeping them sound for the future for those seniors.
Not only did I not vote for that, but I worked on a specific bill that I introduced.
So is Ms. King just...
You're lying. He's outright lying. Now that's an amazing thing to do, though. To be on a national stage, or to be on a stage where it's going to be covered nationally and flamboyantly lie. She calls him on this, strongly calls him on this, and follows up with it. Let's take a look at that too.
Is wrong on
Yes.
that vote?
That is incorrect.
We have it on video footage, him agreeing at Budget Committee on the budget, cutting $500 billion from Medicare and Social
I
Security.
voted to protect both Medicare and Social Security.
And later posted a video showing him voting yes to cut Medicare.
The budget for a brighter American future restores regular order and puts Congress on track to spend within our means.
She also criticized his campaign's dependence on corporate PACs, which led to this exchange.
Ms. King's dollars have come not only from outside of the district, but from outside of Pennsylvania. Significant portions of her dollars have come from San Francisco, from New York City. These are literally liberals who, leftists really, who are paying Ms. King's salary to advance their socialist agenda here in the 11th District of Pennsylvania.
And I've also made a commitment to not take a dime from corporate PACs. I think this is essential in our political moment to talk more about where money comes from, especially if it has a profit motive attached to it. 52% of Congressman Smucker's money has come from PACs, like none of mine has come from PACs. Individuals have funded our campaign, and 70% of his campaigns have come from out of the state. Art's is like 55% out of state. So he gets more money from out of state than I do. And our money comes from people. More than half of his money comes from PACs. More of his money comes from outside this district than mine. If he's making that claim against me is like a big issue. Look in the mirror, sir.
That's an amazing level of hypocrisy. That is an amazing level of hypocrisy. Last point, where the money comes from. People are not giving people in political parties money just because they love those people. And I'm talking about corporations. The corporate motive is to maximize their profits, even in the political space. Yes, they want to maximize their profit just in the way they go about their affairs and their business. But that incentivizes them to reach their hands into the political space in order to affect policy. That policy is often not in the best interest of the individuals themselves. It is in the interest of that particular industry. Her making that point that, look, my money comes from individuals. The people who I answer to are individuals. Those are the people funding my salary. Those are the people who I respond to. You, sir, are being essentially funded by corporate interests, not necessarily the interests of human beings. You have dollars or you have pitchforks. In our political discourse, we've often just had dollars. It is a breath of fresh air to have a candidate say that and put that out there, saying that, look, money does influence behavior. And if this person is taking a ton of money from these corporate sources, it will influence his behavior in the direction of those corporate sources. They're not giving it to him because they just like his smile. They're giving it to him because they want some level of return on investment. I like her. Vote for the person who represents your interests. And if I was in Pennsylvania and if 47% were people were living below the poverty line, this woman would get my vote in a heartbeat. I don't particularly like voting for Democrats. If I'm being honest, there's a headwind when I go into the polls. There's a bad taste in my mouth from the standpoint of the party. But she's not necessarily wrong in saying that there's a headwind as running as an independent. And if she wants to run as a labor Democrat with this idea of redefining what it means to be a Democrat, she knows what she stands for. God bless. God bless. She has all the support in the world from me. Let's see, who's here? If anybody's here. There are people here. All right, I got to be honest. I can't keep this one long because my wife needs to make a phone call and she's going to be just going to need a. She's going to need a. Creative, nothing to say about Bill Clinton and how he makes your point invalid. Okay, I don't know what you guys are arguing about. Jay Scott is just being a troll. I'm going to ignore him. I don't want you to get your sheepdog shifted. Oh, he's just has his panties in a bunch because of the Danny Knapp. Thank you. I'm going to end it on this. Guys, where is it? Right here. My GoFundMe. Save Sam Cedar's abused work wife. Save the world. This brutish man is keeping the radical from being able to fly free outside of Michael Brooks. I want to shout out to Danny Knapp for contributing. All money to this go towards Center Against Domestic Violence. So all of it is for a good cause. And you have the secondary good cause of trying to hold political parties accountable for their failures, not just voter shame. I think there's a radical in Michael Brooks that wants to get out. Hence, me starting this GoFundMe account to try to get that radical out. I'll end it here. Thanks all.